Hello, Aries, Taurus, Moon sign people. Welcome to your Gemini Super New Moon reading 2018. It is a super new moon on the 13th of June. Now, full super moons are easy to see. Go outside at night, you see this huge moon because it is when the moon is 90% closest to the earth usually. This full moon is one at least. I know the apogee is really close, but because it's a new moon, we're not going to see it. It's like a velvet carpet that will enwrap the earth for that 2.5 day, well, really in earnest about a day period. And so that's the period that I like to do my new moon wishes, about a good day into the new moon. And so you're going to want to make your new moon wishes for Gemini about communication. And this new moon for you, Aries, Taurus, Moon sign people, is second house energy, Aries, and your sidereal soul astrology, which is omniscient. It is a very universal cosmic perspective, and so we use that astrology to look at the soul, and the Western earth-centric ego-oriented astrology to look at the emotion. We have to do both with Great Mother Speaks, who is focusing for those of us dealing with a dark night of the soul, specifically with mama drama trauma messages she has for our collective unconsciousness. Now, for you, you have basically opened up to the process of healing your MDT, and you're scared. All this stuff is new. You've probably been doing your own healing work, and for a long time, some of you have been kind of finding your own way with trying to caretake for the mother, for example, or make excuses for the mother or the surrogate, the adoptive, or if not the mother, some of us, our mothers have transitioned, and it's abandonment, feeling that, and now that's triggering issues of abuse maybe that were kind of suppressed for a while. And so this in your past position is showing us that there's a great openness to healing it. For some of you, this is going to be talking about the MDT as it relates to you taking steps and moving forward into your healing process. You have been wishing for there to be some guidance and some direction, and watching this video is a surprise in that direction of help and support. Other things in your life have shown up to answer that prayer, so to speak, that wish, like the new moon wishes that you'll be making for this lunar cycle. Things just showing up to help you. And even though it's challenging to watch, to listen to receive the assistance and guidance, you are doing so at this time. And therefore embracing your shadow. You're embracing this shadow, this very taboo topic of MDT, which is why it is a planetary disorder. What cannot be felt cannot be healed, and what cannot be discussed cannot be remedied. So you're doing that. You are embracing it. You are saying, how has this really impacted my life? Let's take a look at this. I really want to see how you're doing that, and what Great Mother's coming through and sharing with you about what this particular lunar cycle is offering you energetically to support you in that process. In the shadow position, you have self-inquiry. So that means that either you are feeling a sense of judgment and condemnation due to this openness. And that's what happens immediately. When we acknowledge MDT, immediately issues of judgment comes up, because we feel all of those things we have not been wanting to feel for a long time, that all the things that we've been suppressing. We've been taking the abandonment and abuse as a child because we needed to ensure our survival, but then as an adult it becomes a codependency issue, and so of course we don't want to address that, and we many times are not even aware that we have a feeling that we don't know where we end and where our mother begins, or that if she's not okay, we're not okay, and we're constantly trying to fix things. And in the shadow, what Great Mother is saying, that because you have stepped into this realm of reality and you are starting to deal with this issue, you're vacillating between kind of a passive perspective and kind of, for some of you, staying in that mode, even though you're listening, even though you're starting, you're still kind of passive about it. And for others, you're on the complete other end of the continuum and you're starting to really be aggressive. And so, regardless, you're feeling judgment, you're feeling condemnation that you're not doing it right. And what Great Mother is saying to you is that you are doing it right. You're doing it your way. You're doing it the way that you understand it at this time, which is the most sincere way. That is all that's asked of us, is to be serious and sincere. That's enough. And this is the mother of all mothers talking. So sometimes we have to turn off that ear to the birth mother experience or the native mother, the surrogate adoptive mother experience. We have to cut that off and get into our divinity and understanding that we are dearly loved. And that is the voice of intuition. That's how we always know that it's intuition. So the intuitive downloads that you receive from that Vedic Aries is a very direct kind of maternal language. It's very clear and it's very succinct. And so trust it and test it so that you can trust it. Because what it's probably been telling you, and you can test this for yourself, please, please do, that it's time for you to, instead of judging yourself and condemning yourself because of insecurity, step back and ask yourself, is it true? The work of Byron Katie is very powerful in doing the work, as she calls it, to get to the truth of those condemning, painful thoughts that make you feel this judgment that really doesn't exist. It really doesn't have any power except the power we give it. And once we are able to diffuse its power, we're able to diffuse the triggers that it brings up in us and ultimately the judgments. So that's what's going on in your shadow position as you are courageously embracing your shadow. So look into Byron Katie, BYRONKATIE, right here on YouTube, and go through some of the work. She has all sorts of situations that you can listen on and get into the practice of the work and excavating all of those condemning thoughts that make you feel yucky. Because you're ready to follow your bliss if you aren't already. Some of you are already fully on board, fully in line with following your bliss, and you're moving on. You're just receiving this as a confirmation of that. Just absolutely wonderful. This new moon is second house energy for Aries, Taurus, moon sign people. And so you're really establishing new values. And the beginning is actually, how do I word this? The beginning of this process for you is probably going to line up with a 7-year period for you actually cleansing this out into a deeper level of healing MDT. And deeper levels are more emotional work, but as you go deeper, you get lighter emotionally as well. So it's something to look forward to. It's something to know that as of May, your Lunar New Year, that Uranus, if you watched your Lunar New Year video, this video is going to be an excellent follow-up to that, because you'll note that Uranus did enter your sign. And that is all about changing your values over a 7-year period. And so who you are now and how you've been thinking now and what those old conditioned values were and those core beliefs and all that kind of stuff about being unworthy, you're going to completely excavate that. If you're in the beginning of this process, you're in the middle of the process, you're well on your way. And for those of you at the end, you are beginning to follow your bliss. And what this is really meaning to you is that you are pretty independently moving forward with your life at this time emotionally. You've really severed those codependent issues from your life, and you're consciously working with them as they show up as triggers now and again. I support people in this coaching work. This is what I do, and where these cards in this deck emerged from. Now, those of you who are running away from MDT out of fear will find that part of this new moon is going to offer you an invitation to go deeper into that fear so that you are operating from a place of power as opposed to emotional weakness. You fully expect this insight to come to you. You fully expect to receive, in other words, the guidance and the direction that you need to make this transformation in your life. And Great Mother is saying that is because there is a strong sense of self-compassion as a value that is being seeded at this time as well. And so you are cultivating a very strong sense of self-compassion so that you are no longer overly reliant on others to fulfill those emotional needs that you may not have had met by your mother and in present relationships with others that replicate those same dynamics. Now, for passive and aggressive individuals, you can see how you're dancing with acknowledgement according to your perspective. Acknowledgement is actually looking at the abandonment and abuse that you have experienced and are experiencing through these patterns in your life and saying, I've been on a journey, and this is what has happened. This is what I have experienced, and I'm resting. I'm reflecting on it so I can integrate this. I know I'm not the only one. There are other people that are listening to this video too. We are all in this together, but we are the courageous ones who are healing because we have enough courage to want to be well. One God, one law. There are stages that we go through to heal MDT, although we all do it uniquely. You listen to another video, Great Mother has a whole different message about the same topic. But what she's saying to you, Aries, Taurus, Moon sign people, is that if you're passive right now and you're still kind of waiting for more insight, in other words, those Aryan downloads to direct you, because Taurus moon sign, it takes a while for you to kind of get yourself together to actually make a directive change, which is why this is so huge for you. Your lunar new year, has really opened you up to this process, which is huge. And again, everyone's on their own stage in the process. And what is unique to passive people with acknowledgement is that Great Mother's coming through and she's saying, dance with your passivity with consciousness. Know that you are in a seed planting season right now with this new moon, but that your moon sign is really trying to integrate at this time in your lunar new year, which is in the balsamic phase at this particular time. It's really trying to integrate all the issues that have caused you to come to this place of openness. And so let yourself rest. Let yourself recuperate. Let yourself feel what you feel so that you know what you are healing going forward. For those of you who are on the aggressive end, she wants you to know that you can relax into your intuitive space, not in a repose, but in an alertness to that Aries intuitive space. It's going to give you a lot of downloads this new moon. I cannot emphasize that enough for those of you who are watching this, especially during the new moon period, the 12th, 13th, 14th. You're going to be getting so many downloads because in the sidereal, the new moon is in Taurus in the nakshatra of Rohini, which is symbolized by the cow. Fertile, very abundant, a passionate kind of a beautiful energy about life, just enjoying life. And so that is how it'll feel. That's how that Aries energy will feel. And with the new moon, we're talking about Great Mother, Father, God making love. Okay, here's the earth, here's the moon, and here's the sun. And so we don't see the sun because they're getting it on. And so she's pulling in, receiving energy from a Taurus sun, soul sun, in the nakshatra of Mixira, symbolized by the deer, jubilant, inquisitive, soft, gentle, adroit, alert. And so that energy of Taurus, soul Taurus energy, being downloaded with joy, abundance, and very fertile. You'll get a lot. You're going to get a lot. And so the relaxing is, again, more of an alertness. The hammering that just started is really emphasizing that. Now, hidden influences is that this can still bring up some fears. It's a new path. That's to be expected. And so when fear comes up, we have to surrender to our guidance so that we can get clarity. Excuse me. Surrender is just an indication that we need clarity. We're not clear. We can't see. That's what fear is. We don't know what's going on. And although it is not meant for us always to know what's going on, quote unquote, it is a knowing that exists within all of us on a soul level that we can always tap into. And that's the benefit of knowing that these downloads are going to allow you to acknowledge the abandonment and abuse in new, healing ways. Because you're much more compassionate with yourself at this time. You can do that. Now, in the center of your spread is self-doubt, and this has to do with what is expected. And what you are expecting is, because of this fear, to have continued issues of self-doubt.
When we are fearful and that produces self-doubt, we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we want to create? What is it that we want to experience? Because sometimes self-doubt is really a lack of is really fear masquerading, I should say, as a lack of direction that we need to have within ourselves, which is important for Aries, Taurus, Moon sign people, because that Aryan soul energy has very clear direction. Soul evolves and it grows and it learns just like we do. But with an Aries soul energy, it is very clear and very direct about what it wants to do in the moment. And so when we are feeling this in the moment, if we can tap into that meditative, that still small voice, which is always kind, compassionate, loving, and direct, we can hear, we can sense, we can feel, some of us can see exactly what it is lighting the path for us going forward. So again, fear masquerading as a lack of direction. In other words, there's no map. You know where you want to go, but you don't feel that you know how to get there. Sometimes is really what self-doubt is about. And I'm feeling like that's what this really is. And so just tune into that And if you're watching before the new moon or even after the next new moon, align your new moon wishes with questions for clarity about how you're going to get that confirmation. How, in other words, for this Gemini new moon, the new moon wish might be for you to have more clarity about the activity and how you're moving in the world at this particular time in a specific situation or in a specific relationship. The clarity that you're needing may have to do with, how you're needing to move in the world, how you are needing to interact with someone that you haven't been interacting with lately, and what's the direction you need to go with how to interact with them. Forgetting having the end game known precisely. This is about your values. This is second house energy. And so what is meaningful to you at this time is what's most important. And you're relating that to the Gemini new moon wishes. And so this Gemini in your second house is really about asking in the moment where the self-doubt comes up, how I want to have more social ease as it relates to how I am sharing my desires. I want my communication to be clear and logical. I want to learn more about how to pursue my bliss now that I have decided to embrace my shadow. Those types of things are going to be very clear wishes that will in turn render very clear messages and direction. Letting go is surrender. So in the let go position, Great Mother is encouraging you doubly to surrender to this process. The challenge with surrender oftentimes is the tendency to revert back to old behaviors, old relationships. Oh, that'll be okay. I can do that. But you have to protect the ground that you have covered. And it's taken you a long time, Aries, Taurus Moon people, to get to this point. So you really want to continue to surrender to what is in your heart, that crossroads between the ego and the soul, about where you really need to be and how you need to be moving again in the world. Be sure that when you are feeling fearful again, that instead of reverting back to old addictions, for example, or relationships that are toxic, for example, that you go into that space that will give you the moment by moment, blow by blow, about what's best for you in the moment. You might not always align with it. And so, you might not always be ready. That's why we talk about lunar cycles. It is a process. But know that that's available to you at all times. Great Mother's advice to you, though, is to follow the directive that you were given. This is a double yang. The Mother Mary card is Great Mother coming through saying, do it. So, okay, not so much leeway. You're going to have to do it in order for you to maintain a sense of emotional balance, okay? And so what you're feeling on a gut level about what is good for you and what is not, when you feel fear and you retreat back into that internal space to get clarity, follow the directive. That is going to be your healing balm. By doing so in your immediate future, you're going to shine. This is what is going to allow you to shine your light in the world. It's going to be something that you have thought you would never be able to do, some of you. And for others, it's probably going to come as a surprise because you've been working so hard to get to this point. But you're going to reclaim it, and you are, because as a result of your discipline, your initiative, and the seeds that you've planted in asserting these new values in your life. People wonder, how can I ever change? This is so overwhelming. I've had this all my life. Oh, I could never get out of this on my own. Well, this is the internal work, the coaching work that I do to support individuals with this accelerates the process. But this is basically it. This is it. And you are going to be shining as a result of your choices to follow through with the work. To do so, Great Mother is saying, you're going to need to embody a sense of calm that will be facilitated by getting in touch with nature, going outside, breathing the air, grounding, breathing through your feet, earthing with your shoes off. This is going to be facilitated by you amplifying Great Mother energy found through other means, primarily Gaia. You might have surrogate mothers who are very encouraging, who are supporting you in this process. Some of you may have aunts that are very compassionate, that are very empathetic to the process with you. You want to connect with those energies. Some of you may also need to actually physically, lovingly detach from your toxic mother. Others, it may just be an emotional detachment that you may need to do on a more conscious level. You may need to more consciously sacrifice the codependency that you've developed. Really, really cut the cord, cold turkey. And some of you are at that place that you can do that. Others, that's an aspiration, which is why the deck is in 6 suits based on the acronym of ASPIRE, with acknowledge being the main card of that suit. Now, the possible outcome is that you will find that all is well. All is well that ends well. You've come into this lunar cycle open, and it will end with a wellness generated as a result of that openness. Others, you will find this lunar cycle is going to bring up for you new desires and wishes for the Cancer new moon that have to do specifically, of course, with your mother again. And you are really needing to meditate and pray on some new things. The long-term future is that you're going to be rewarded for all of this work. You are in it to win it, and you are. The Rock card is the reward card of the deck, and these are unexpected rewards. When this card shows up, the rewards that you're getting from your work are things that you would have never expected. Raises at work, little fender benders that cause you to get, a check for $2,000. Okay, that's the material. The immaterial is all of a sudden your children start minding. They start doing what you tell them to do, and they're happy about it. How is that? Our children are so intuitively connected to us. When we begin to heal, they do too. The Rock card is so powerful, and I'm so happy for you for that, because she is putting up such a yardstick for you to meet this lunar cycle, and she's doing that because I'm seeing that you already have it in you to fulfill. It's just a matter of you trusting in yourself. Just a matter of you trusting in yourself. And that's not too hard for Aries, Taurus Moon to do. That's not too hard. That's not too hard. Your outcome is integrity. You're telling yourself the truth about how you're feeling and where you're going, your limitations, as well as your strengths and aspirations as you continue on your healing journey. Now remember to watch your Lunar New Year video. I'll try to remember to place the link below, but if not, it's in the playlist for Lunar New Year videos, and yours was posted a month ago, and so this is your first reading after that into your Lunar New Year of Taurus until the Taurus New Moon next year in May. Remember, these are general readings based on the first house, making this the second house reading for your collective unconsciousness in Aries, Taurus. However, your actual moon sign, it could be in your 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th, which is why we have personal reading links below. Stay tuned for the extra nodal axes explaining how your nodes are used in your moon sign readings. But above all and most of all, remember, Great Mother loves you, and I do too.
Okay, a word on the nodes is that they are typically viewed as too ethereal to be grounded in the world, too much of a conceptual aspect of the astrological chart to be really practical and practically interpreted as meaningful in your life now, which is why they are associated with the soul and kind of, okay, we can't really understand that. It's bigger than we are. We're not going to go there. And although that is true, the part that we can go to when we're looking at lunar aspects is that in the North Node or Rahu, we know that that is the evolutionary direction the soul is headed. We know that it is in large part the soul intention for its incarnation this particular lifetime. And knowing that, the sign it's in, the house it's in, and what aspects that house and those planets tell us the nature of the incarnation, what's important to it. Now, bringing that from the ethereal and the conceptual into a grounded interpretation requires us to understand the sentient nature of our physical senses: hearing, seeing, smelling, touching, waking, sleeping state, the state of health, the state of unhealth, etc. Those subtleties of life is what brings the nodal into the practical sphere. For example, all aspects of our nodes always oppose one another. And we know that if your Rahu is in your fourth house, your north node, then the 10th house is where Ketu or your south node is. Conceptually, we know that that soul is here to ground itself in the physical realm, specifically domestically, in its home, through property that it owns, to ground itself physically in the world. Now, regardless of the other aspects in the chart, because we're talking about the nodal axes, it's going to have a holographic effect on the entire chart as it relates to its incarnational purpose. Everything is ultimately pointing towards that in their own way based on other aspects of the chart. But if you could just imagine the yang symbol, the circle with that arrow to the right, finding its ultimate purpose in this earth realm, steering towards it, pointed towards it, and finally incarnating as the physical form of the cosmic calculus that makes up our entire chart, which is our internal wiring kind of laid out, splashed upon the stars and constellations that we can read and interpret. We will see that the north node and the nodal axes in general give us a look into how to ease the internal stresses of that life incarnated purpose. So regardless of what it is, there will always be stresses associated with it, issues of insecurity, self-esteem, and how we are experiencing that incarnational purpose on an individual basis. So with our example with the North Node in the fourth house dealing with domesticity and the mother, there will be challenges associated with the home and the mother. There will be stresses associated with that because that is the stuff that evolution is made of, that conflict, that yin and that yang purification process that occurs. So just looking at that, we can see that there will be opportunities throughout life to grow and evolve, which can be seen in the chart. To further ground that, we want to look at what your chart is telling you about your health, what your chart is telling you about your career, about your relationships, how you see the world, finances, and spirituality, because it's going to inform the strengths and the challenges associated with that. As we do that, returning back to the subtleties of our waking dreaming state, our clairs, clairvoyance, our clear seeing, our clear feeling and touching, clairsentience, clear audience, those extra sensory abilities. What happens is our unique strengths in those areas are constantly offering us information, tools, and guidance about how to confront, remedy, and transform those challenges and those stresses. So let's say, for example, with the North Node in the fourth house, one of the aspects is to have a sixth house everyday life situation where the sun is there. Or I'm not going to get too deeply into the example because there's so many variations, but let's just say that in your everyday life, you're very focused toward what you want to do. You're very clear about what you want to do, but maybe in your career, there's some conflict for one reason or another. That's going to create a challenge, perhaps, in creating the necessary revenue to get the home that you want to feel grounded. That is going to work for you to feel that domestic grounding. And so with the South Node, or Leo and K2, there's going to be a tremendous tendency to want to fall back on that default, which is what the South Node is, the soul default, the many lifetimes that the soul has had in that particular energy, which is all about accomplishment, success, in career, and that sort of thing. Wanting to fall back into that, even in light of this lifetime, that being a challenge, there being some corners cut, perhaps, or some illegalities, perhaps, as it relates to acquiring the home that you want, or dealing with maternal issues and that sort of thing. So that's how we can ground it a little bit further and look for opportunities with our dreams, with how we are managing our sleeping life, our circadian rhythms. Are they really supporting us in a way that we feel energized enough to fulfill what we need to fulfill, to acquire what we need to acquire to feel grounded? If we need to be a bit more creative than what the present lifestyle is in acquiring a home, do we need to perhaps be a little bit more intuitive with regard to what may be other opportunities to acquire those things? Maybe there are people that are wanting people to do some house sitting around your area, but you really haven't tuned into that. But there may be some intuitive guidance in that area where you could easily do that. The soul is always downloading intuitive information to us, and it is through our sentient voices, feelings, and unctions that we can connect to exactly what it is that we need to fulfill those things. And so that is what we look at in a moon reading as it relates to the nodes. We look at where those strengths could possibly be for you. Some people have more of an ability to hear. They may have clearer audience based on the fifth chakra prevalence of Mercury energy throughout their chart. That kind of thing is what we're looking at in a moon sign reading. That's the perspective that we are able to gain
a clearer view into how to use your sensitivities, how to identify them and work with them to fulfill your practical needs that the soul has in this lifetime, for you to feel the balance and the equilibrium that you need within yourself as you deal with this very challenging issue of mama drama trauma.
For more information about Mama Drama Trauma, visit mamadramatrauma.info.